like I grew up when hip hop, the first kind of like, I was getting electro compilations, so the street sounds electro compilations, which I know that you'll know. Like, so I was getting those when I was 8 years old from a friend, my mum's friend's son who was a bit older than me. And obviously then we were going down to like Covent Garden and seeing people doing graffiti. There was a show at the Shaw Theatre that I went to when I was 8 years old, which is, I found it the other day. I thought I might have dreamt it. It's this crazy show where loads of like MCs, DJs came over from New York and did this show in the Shaw Theatre. And if you Google the Shaw Theatre, and it was this crazy thing. And we went there and I was 8 years old. Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's mad that you were there. That's
mate,
crazy.
It was crazy, like 8 years old.
Wow.
So I did that as well. Then like sort of, you know, time moved on, and I worked in like a record shop called Deep Freeze Records this is like jumping forward a bit, on Camden Road, when like UK garage was emerging. We had all the house music. Obviously, acid house had happened. And then obviously that was kind of like merging into like breakbeat hardcore. So there was like hardcore. And we had that whole thing happen. And then my sister was bringing back tapes. We were listening to pirate radio. So there was the whole pirate radio thing.
Killa Kela podcast. KillaKelaOfficial.com.
Street Culture TV.
Beatbox created.
Killa Kela.
And we're here to talk about world music and street culture.
Killa Kela podcast.
Into that.
Okay.
Yeah, well, ladies and gentlemen, Killa Kela podcast, live and direct, central London, or as central as you need to be, could be, choose to be, desire to be. You don't want to be anywhere else, trust me. Okay, people, our sponsors, the mighty GK Nifty Heads, have 10,000 play-to-earn GraffPunks NFTs to give away. Get ready as London's white trash goes blockchain digital with Bitcoin Cash tokens locked into them to claim. Get yourselves over to the website gkniftyheads.com and play to earn now. Oh, it's okay, Piccadilly Circus, so this is the last one from us in here. God knows how many episodes in here alone over the last 2 years. We're very proud to celebrate this final episode here before moving on to the next place with a gentleman that I've recently frequented with, but have known his name for a very long time. I swear to goodness. A very versatile artist in his own right, somehow merging his rapping voice with a singing voice, with a melodic dance, almost like a folky level of inspiration and production, but then straight into the hip-hop. He's the versatile man himself with a sound to boot. He goes by the name of Just Jack.
Hello, mate. That was like the best intro I could have possibly imagined. Thank you very much. All bases touched on.
Yeah. And we were kind of talking about it because we did the Pink Pantherist show.
We did.
More recently, which was a lot of fun, wasn't it? The dynamics of her music on reflection, the early old school to them. Yeah,
yes.
I mean, sound of British music.
Yeah.
And that's very much where you began and came up from, right?
Yeah, I feel like having had a chat with her, there's quite a lot of parallels with how we sort of started in terms of purely sampling stuff in a very rudimentary way. And then basically I was kind of rapping and singing on bits of other people's records, and she basically does the same thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think also maybe not particularly trying to affiliate yourself with any particular kind of scene or like sort of genre or whatever. I think
era, isn't it?
I think it was just, I think as well from sort of sampling things in a slightly sort of random way, you weren't pulled towards a genre, because if I heard a sample that I liked, I would just use it, and whatever that was, that's what it would be. So if it was like a kind of from a folk record or whatever, then it would kind of be like a folky track, and if it was like something a bit more gnarly, it might be like a hip hop thing, or if it was something like disco-y, then it would end up being a bit more housey. And I think that's generally what she's doing and what I'm doing.
Yeah. One thing that I pick up on with your stuff, and this is to credit of the batting average and success in which you've gone on your path, is the quality of the mixes and the production. That doesn't go amiss to me when I hear the quality of.
Well, yeah, I mean, we spend a lot of time on that stuff, I think I've got a very, I mean, so basically like Jay Reynolds mixed the early stuff,
right.
So the first 3 albums, and he now mixes he's mixed like Dua Lipa, he does all Fred Again stuff.
Wow.
He does like he does like Nines. Wow. He does like everyone. He's done everything. It's crazy. He's an amazing mixer, so he's like gone.
He's not
on
going to
this-
be listening to the mix of my podcast. Very different.
So he's
cut
gone on
and
this
paste.
amazing path since we basically kind of pretty much learnt to do that stuff, I would say, together.
Really?
And then he, well, yeah, because he just got a copy of Pro Tools when I first met him. And he was taking everything out of my Akai S950, all my like shitty little loops and stuff, putting them into Pro Tools and kind of like constructing songs out of them.
So you were like buddies?
So
You
we
were
were kind of we met through a random thing. I think he was engineering like a session that I was doing, that someone else was producing, and then and then we kind of just hit it off. And he's just got this kind of quiet, sort of really super efficient, but kind of. He's just a really good guy to be in the studio. He just gets things done in a really great way. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, he was like a big. He mixed all the early stuff and obviously put a lot of time into that. So that was great. And then now I mix with a guy called Rob Quickenden, which is in a little studio in the middle of the countryside. We just sort of lock ourselves away. And yeah, but the production. I mean, like, I'd take a lot of time over it, and my quality control is high
Super
as you would
high.
want to go, because like I couldn't stand putting out a track that I didn't think was great. And if you listen to great music, and I do hunt down and try and listen to like what I perceive to be great music as much as possible, you're comparing yourself, whether you know it or not, to those records. And so if you're doing that, you can't end up with like a bad thing, I don't think.
No.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely. I mean, the processes are one thing, getting it right is another. I mean, that's that 10,000 hours of theory.
It's
in
a
one
painful. It's a painful
Yeah.
thing to do. It's not. It's like I'm always telling people. I've done a bit of teaching in the past, and I'm always telling like young artists or whatever that it's not like a walk in the park. It will get painful at some point. You know, you will have to take like discomfort in terms of
Resistance
just
as well.
resistance, but also like just doubting whether something's good enough.
Yeah.
And also going between that thing where you love something and then the next day you hate it, and then the next day you love it, and then the next day you're kind of a bit like in the middle, and it's like that's the process you go through.
Yeah.
So you have to put up with that feeling of not really quite knowing where you are with something to get to the point where you push it hard enough so that it's something that's good.
Yeah.
I mean,
No, I completely get you.
subjectively good, obviously, but still, what I perceive to be good, which so far it seems to be working.
Yeah, solid batting average, I would say. No, it is a method. I guess when talking to young people in general, actually, it's this hybrid of complete zen and therapy, of being in the moment of a thing like a mix, or having a real solid creative play on coming up with ideas and whatnot. But then comes this reality of like, oh, now we've got to fix it.
yeah. Now you've got to finish it.
Yeah.
So like I'll write stuff or like have something in my head that I'm like singing in the studio, and I won't record it for ages.
Yeah.
Because I've got this really weird feeling that when I record it, I'm going to just listen to it and be like, this is actually a bit shit.
Is it addictive? Is it addictive for you, this whole thing?
It must be, because I periodically try and like do other things.
Yeah.
So I've got like an art project that I'm doing, which is like a whole nother thing at the moment,
Right.
which like I'm sort of working on, which I actually really like, but it's like a separate thing. And I've had like various other things. I tried to write a children's book at one point when I had little kids, and like illustrate and write a children's book. I tried all these other things, but then whenever I sort of like went off on this other path, I just get drawn back.
Yeah.
Just every single time something would happen, or like something good would happen, or something like the Pink Panthers thing would come up, and I'd be like, you know what I mean? I'd be like inspired again. But I feel like if you're listening to music all the time, and music's such a big part of your life, then you, I think you get to a point where you just want to make it again. You want to be in it. I always wanted to be in it. I never liked watching things. I realise I'm not a massive fan of watching live music, because when I'm watching it, I'm like, I don't want to be standing here.
Yeah.
I want to be
out there doing that.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I think that's like a realisation I've come to, is that I'm not really much of a spectator. I want to be like doing the thing.
Yeah. Not a participant sport, is it? A spectator sport. You've got to be a participant.
I feel people get an amazing amount of pleasure out of being like a spectator and out of being a fan of things.
Yeah.
And I am up to a point, but then there's a part of me that will always be slightly frustrated that it's not me like doing the thing. You know?
You've got a lot of music out there. I mean, what are we talking, like 8 or 9 albums?
Well, like five albums.
5, but then you've got all the different.
So then I've got EPs, and I've got like singles and a couple of remixes, and like I haven't got as much music as you would think I don't think I've got as much music as you would think I would have with the amount of time I've been doing this, which is a fucking long time.
Yeah.
But like you say, I feel like all of it is I feel like all of it is good, and I feel like it definitely hasn't like fallen off.
Yeah.
And people say that to me all the time.
It's incredibly consistent.
It's not like, I feel like sometimes with artists it does just have this like slow decline. Like I don't know why that happens, but I feel like
Comfortability. I think it's being comfortable.
yeah, and also maybe like the sort of maybe like the magic of music is slightly sort of like dulled down over time for people. They maybe some people I know get a bit cynical. Depends how their careers are going and stuff like that. You know, the music industry has done a load of weird changes in the time that we've been around.
Yeah.
But
consistency is key, isn't it?
Yeah. I feel like if the magic goes a little bit, if your enjoyment of music goes, or you're not moving with music, I feel like I would never like turn around and be like, oh, there's no good music today, or like it was so much better. Like it's like that's bollocks. You just need to dig around. It's like people say, oh, mainstream music's rubbish today. It's like, well, just get out of the mainstream. Just turn the bloody radio off. Like, go turn the radio off and go and dig around. Do you know what I mean? Go and find some stuff, because like, I'm always finding music that I really like and that excites me, and I think because of that just keeps you going. It's just fuel, isn't it? It's just it's like, you know.
Yeah, it is. It is old and new, actually.
Yeah.
Discovering like, you know, some old tunes that you didn't realise were sampled by XYZ, and then all of a sudden it's like, damn, like what did it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like always finding like older music as well, you know.
Yeah.
And luckily, there's amazing playlists on Spotify that people make amazing playlists of like, you know, hundreds of tunes, and like you can just go off into this journey, man.
Yeah.
So some of it you're gonna hate, and some of it you'll just find amazing things.
Yeah, I find a passion in music compared to when we was younger. DJ Vadim said this a week or two ago that, you know, a lot of it now is that people in general don't invest in too much time in the body of work that exists within certain genres. They kind of like just take little bits. So it'd be like a little bit of drum bass. They wouldn't know what an amen is. They wouldn't know what they wouldn't know what particular DJ does what, or what produces what, and what the whole cultural ethos is. And it's the same with hip hop, probably reggae, probably rock and roll. It's just they just have a bit of drill, bit of grime, bit of that, and that. But that's actually pop culture coming into the commercial sphere. I think everyone is just built commercially now, without too much deep dive.
Yeah, I don't know what. I think everyone enjoys music. Not everyone enjoys music in a different way, but I think that there are definitely different ways to enjoy music. And like, I think I might be slightly guilty of what you're just talking about.
Really, we're just.
I'm not like a kind of. I don't particularly kind of intellectualize it, and I don't particularly kind of like sort of pride myself on knowing like all of the key things, although I've been lucky enough to like sort of, you know, my journey through the music I love has sort of brought me to those places in some senses, but I'm not like a super like, you know, expert on this particular thing.
Yeah, but we've talked about we have had conversations. I mean, like, you know about
I know it, but
DDS and turntablism.
But that's why I pointed out that like actually like I have picked up this stuff, but it's not me like trying to be like, I know people who like really pride themselves on being very like, I know everything there is to know about this thing, almost like they're sort of like it's an exam.
Yeah.
And which is
that's
like
scary shit as well.
but which is fine. But which is fine. Like, I think it's great that there's like people who are like so deep into something. But I think for myself, like my enjoyment and my taste in music just flings around, man. Do you know what I mean? It really does, which is amazing. Like I was thinking about this morning, like how many different sort of genres and areas of music I've been sort of lucky enough to see emerging in London, particularly when I was growing up, and just been lucky enough to enjoy, and just like, it's insane, like how much of it kind of goes around.
Give me an example of that, because that sounds great.
Well, so like you know, like I grew up when hip hop, the first kind of like, I was getting electro compilations, so the street sounds electro compilations, which I know that you'll know, like, so I was getting those when I was 8 years old from a friend, my mum's friend's son, who was a bit older than me, And obviously, then we were going down to like Covent Garden and seeing people doing graffiti. There was a show at the Shore Theatre that I went to when I was 8 years old, which is I found it the other day. I thought I might have dreamt it. It's this crazy show where loads of like MCs, DJs came over from New York and did this show in the Shore Theatre. And if you Google the Shore Theatre, and it was this crazy thing. And we went there, and I was 8 years old. Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's mad that you were there. That's
mate,
crazy.
It was crazy. Like 8 years old.
Wow.
So I did that as well. Then like sort of time moved on, and I worked in like a record shop called Deep Freeze Records this is like jumping forward a bit, on Camden Road, when like UK garage was emerging. We had all the house music. Obviously, acid house had happened. And then obviously that was kind of like merging into like breakbeat hardcore. So there was like hardcore. And we had that whole thing happen. And then my sister was bringing back tapes. We were listening to pirate radio. So there was the whole pirate radio thing, the whole rave thing. Like I saw the Prodigy doing their third ever show, like at the Sobo Sports Centre at Telepathy I went to when I was a kid. I saw the Chemical Brothers, when they were the Dust Brothers, do their first live show at the Ministry of Sound. It was like crazy what was happening. So yeah, going back to Deep Freeze Records, the UK garage thing was like emerging, and then I was getting into like a load of like house music in like Manchester, and paper recordings and euphonic and all these kind of like slightly kind of like more jazzy kind of house things.
Cool.
Also had like US house music that I loved as well, like Masters at Work and that kind of thing.
Chicago stuff, yeah.
Also what I was thinking about on the bus coming down here was like this perfect like meeting for me was where like I loved house music and I loved hip hop, and there was people like DJ Spinner and
Todd Terry and
like Todd Terry, but it was like really kind of like at this perfect sort of point. And Amp Fiddler was doing it. And also Only Child in Manchester was doing it on Grand Central Records. I loved Grand Central Records, like Ray and Christian and all that sort of thing. So basically, my thing was just like everywhere that I would want to be. Yeah. Like somehow it just went on this sort of thing. So
you were literally just being transported to all the kind of
like, but I don't really, I just loved it, obviously, like deeply loved it. Like I get like genuinely emotional thinking about like how much of a huge part of my life music is. And it's but yeah, it's crazy. Like I can talk to like electronic producers, house people, hip hop people, garage people, like and but also like indie people, like rock, like across the board.
Yeah, you get the energy.
And my daughter, like, is 15. She comes to me and she's like, "I've heard this thing," and I'm like, "Yeah, I was playing that to you like 5 years ago." Like, do you know
classic.
what I mean? So it's kind of like,
yeah, but I discovered it this time.
I'm kind of we have like competition.
It's very different.
He's like,
being told
I'm more into Tyler. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I suppose I've been lucky to have had that sort of that thing, and then what I think the weirdest thing is that when you look at my music, it doesn't really fully drop into any of those kind of like things that I've been into. It just has this like really weird kind of like. So going back to what we were saying about being a bit of a sort of magpie and taking these like tiny little things, almost things that you can't recognise where the influence is from, but there's a little tiny bit of a feeling or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like,
but I'll dial back to a scenario of a certain gentleman that you met backstage at Glastonbury.
Yes.
Now, when you hear their music, it kind of has that free-form influenced. Well, okay, it's in its lane.
Yeah.
But maybe explain a bit about what happened at Glastonbury and then just to show that my context isn't completely off.
So I bumped into Caribou.
Yes,
which was Dan Snaith.
That's it.
Backstage and I was like fanboying, like properly, like, you know, my hands were shaking, like talking to him, which is kind of weird because I don't get that feeling talking to like people who are like perceived to be really famous people that I've met a few people who are like famous. I don't get that from them, but when it's someone who is obviously so passionate about what they do and has like a catalogue that's really deep and that I've listened to all the way through, and like someone who, and also you've been influenced by, genuinely you've listened to their records and thought, how can I bring a bit of this, whatever they're doing, into my own music. So I met Dan from Caribou, and I think he does have that sort of thing where he sort of brings in, I mean, obviously essentially it's kind of in that house disco kind of electronic world, you know what I mean? but it definitely you can feel the kind of like the depth of love of music within what he does. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you can. You really can.
And I think you can when you listen to people's music. I think that's probably the difference between why some music is like ends up being like kind of again like subjectively good.
Yeah.
Or what I like is like when someone is obviously just loves it. Just really loves it, like not like oh I think I can make a career out of this, or I think it's like you just love it, like it doesn't matter, like, anything else could be happening in your life and you'd still be loving it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And but that's also from a perspective of a creative themselves. I always find it even more intriguing when you meet people that just love music. They could be, work in a secretarial fire department and big up all the workers out there. God damn it.
Absolutely.
But it's just incredible that people out there that really.
But that's exactly what I mean. I mean, like when I left, like I did a course at university, and like it wasn't what I wanted to be doing, and I was doing like a load of jobs, like.
But what was the course?
The course was furniture and product design.
Oh right, okay.
So it was a random one. Like I've always been like quite artistic and like into design and that sort of thing and visual stuff.
Very cool.
So I did that, and then after that I did like a load of jobs. I worked in the Gap, and I worked in like pub kitchens, and I worked in doing all those kind of things. And I ended up being a runner, which was kind of my best job in Soho, just down the road, in a TV company, which was kind of nice. And that sort of brought me out of myself a little bit, and that's when I started to make music, I think, actually, or I started to get more thinking that I could make a sort of go of music, I suppose. But what I'm trying to say is, during all that time, I was just a fan of music. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you were just getting into it.
I just loved it. I was buying a lot of records. I was DJing like at little parties. We put on little parties and stuff like that. So we put on these parties where, actually going back to what I was saying about this like meeting of like hip hop and house, we had these parties where we'd start off playing like Tribe and the Roots and that kind of thing, and then it would slowly just move through into like house music, and it worked perfectly. I mean, it I'm quite surprised there's not more of that sort of.
I agree.
Like even when I listen to like Dilla and stuff like that, like I feel like it has that sort of like there's almost like a wonky house thing and a hip hop thing, that those things cross over so much.
And he fucked with it a little bit on the Slum Village album, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, like, it just. I mean, I just feel like. Yeah. I really enjoyed, and I really enjoy that kind of that meeting. I think it's a really lovely thing, mainly because I just love those two like branches of music. Do you know what I mean?
Was it a bit like Daft Punk and is it Stardust? Like that music sounds better with you kind of vibe. The heart the house tempo a little bit slower. Bit more vibey. Yeah. I mean, I think that those people, like people who made all that music, would have definitely loved like hip hop and loved that thing. And like, I don't think it's literally like a tempo thing, really, isn't it? It is a tempo thing.
And a kind of an energy thing. Yeah. But it's like, but I think you get the same feeling as well. It's about it's the feelings you get from stuff, isn't it? I think that's also, just to jump back to what I was saying about not kind of like being deeply into particular genres or like studying it really deeply. I think it's just like a feeling thing. When you hear something, you just feel like something, and that's enough. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Where are your mum and dad from originally? London? Whereabouts?
They my dad's from like Surrey. My mum's from Aylesbury.
Nice.
Just like places outside London. They both moved to London. They both went to Kingston University on the edge of London, and then they moved into London after that. So
and you lived in London whereabouts?
I grew up in near Highbury till I was 8, and then I moved to Camden Town, edge of Camden Town, like between Holloway and Camden.
Nice.
When I was 8. And
were they ever into music?
They loved music. Yeah. Like my dad always played the guitar. So the records in the house, I was thinking about this on the bus actually. so the records in the house were like, when I was really young, it was like, so there was like my dad's kind of thing, which was like, some of it was kind of dad rock, sort of like the Eagles and stuff like that. But then he also loved like Neil Young and like Joni Mitchell and a lot of those kind of things that you'd have found, like Carole King. So there was that.
Bit of Free, bit of Deep Purple, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, not so much. Like, not so much the kind of like, he was more, it was more like a, sort of softer in some ways.
Folky kind of.
Yeah,
in a
kind
way.
of. Yeah. So he loved all that. He loved all that sort of thing. But then he also like loved like Howlin' Wolf and like
Sick.
BB King and like
Nice.
blues guitarists. And then my mum had like Terence Trent D'Arby, Tracy Chapman, Sade, like all these other things, which were just basically some of the best pop music that's ever like that's ever
hands
happened.
down.
Let's face it. Do you know what I mean? It's brilliant music.
Yeah.
So there was all this kind of like, so there was like a really nice kind of a really nice mixture of like sort of classic songwriting and then sort of like just sort of like great albums and stuff from the time.
Yeah, bodies of work.
Yeah.
So, Stars in Your Eyes, arguably a kind of actually era-defining, artist-defining moment.
Yeah.
I mean,
I suppose it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I'm not the first person to point that out.
No,
but
it's not a bombshell.
Yeah, it's not a bombshell. I mean, and what is also cool as fuck is you've obviously had other music out and other successful bits, and the albums don't tell no lies. The music is strong. It's just very rare that you get these moments where an artist naturally deserves the flowers on the incline that he's built himself on. First album, second album, boom, and then you get the hit. Like that in itself is a rarity, and that must have blown some minds, doors, some all sorts of things. You know, like you said, you've been doing it for so much longer time before things blew up that it was almost, you must have been thinking, thank fuck.
I wasn't doing it for so long actually before that happened. I did one album.
Yeah, so you did the first one.
So I did the first one in 2003.
I remember that one.
So that was like sort of, yeah, that sort of, that put me, a few people knew about me like in the industry and stuff
in the street,
like that.
in the kind of more underground scene.
And it kind of like, there was like, I think like, Hip Hop Connection and things like that didn't really know what to really say about it, because it was like, it was definitely sort of trying to be like hip hop in some ways, but didn't have that kind of bragging kind of like, I don't know, I just didn't have that kind of like, it didn't come from a sort of like, from a kind of like battle-y type sort of thing, or a kind of like, like a sort of a braggadocio kind of thing. It was definitely much more of a sort of like, I'm like a bloke trying to deal with my emotions and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean?
To a point.
Do you know what I mean? It was like...
But even the aesthetic, we're talking about an era defining time where you had stenciling of Milo,
and Daft Punk. There was a Daft Punk stencil down the road from me.
And that first release of yours was certainly, I just feel like it really heralded a moment where Shoreditch was suddenly becoming.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it did. I think my sort of my perception of it has always been like less than maybe other people's. Like I felt like, because it wasn't a particularly like commercial success, but also I felt like I was very much like stuck between sort of genres and didn't really belong anywhere. And there was part of me that really enjoyed that, and part of me I was just like, it felt weird, man. Like I always felt like the uncool person that was still doing something that maybe deserved to be made or deserved to be heard, but I still felt like I wasn't that guy. I wasn't the hype guy. I wasn't like the kind of, do you know what I mean? Which now I realise is partly why I'm probably still sort of sitting here.
Yeah, you're still revered.
Like I said to my mate the other day,
people identify with that.
I sent him a text the other day. I was like, if you've never been like cool, you never get uncool. It's like, do you know what I mean? If you've never been,
that's for you uncool people out there.
But if you've never been like hyped, if you've never been hyped, then you can't lose the hype.
That's what I'm saying with Stars in the Eyes. It was like,
Stars in the Eyes. I think because it came. So to go back to I put out the Outer Marker, which was like this kind of sort of hip hop soul kind of like hybrid thing, and then I just. I think I've been listening to like so Stars in the Rise was basically my impression of like the clash or something like that. That's what it was supposed to kind of. It was basically like a disco.
My mind
clash.
is blown.
Well, because if you so it had like the sort of tom drum,
Totally
it had like
get
the
it.
toms and stuff like that. And if you listen to the drum track and stuff like that, if you break it down,
it
actually the actual instrumental is kind of like it has that sort of like that.
Totally.
Well, it does. It doesn't have like the okay, I was never going to get. I was never going to get to that, and I could never like do at all do what they'd done. But I think it was at the time I was listening to the Clash, and I've always sort of loved like disco, and I was listening to a lot of like indie kind of dance, so like DFA and stuff like that. You know, like so I think it was a mixture of all that stuff. But yeah, that song, like the demo of it didn't sound like that at all. So the demo was just like 2 chords and an 808. It had 808 drums on it originally, and it was about 10 beat. It's probably like 110 BPM or whatever. It's like a slow little thing, weird little demo.
Wow.
So I recorded that, and then when we got in the studio, we had like a live drummer for the first time ever. We had a live drummer, bass player, guitarist, and then I think I'd been listening to I'd just been to the toilet, and I'd walked back down the corridor, and someone had been listening to like a song that had like tom. They'd been listening to Adam and the Ants. No way. With like the toms. Yeah. So I just came into the thing and I was like, right, and they were like, well, do you want the drum track to be like? I was like, toms. I wanted to start with toms, and then it'd be kind of like a disco kind of thing, like a skippy sort of disco thing.
Mad.
And then like we had the 3 chords on the guitar already, and then I think I sang like half of the sort of ding 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 ding, because they were like, what do you want the riff to be like? And I was like, I don't know, ding 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 ding. Like I sort of like sung that, and then the bass was like dun 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 dun, and then the bass player sort of embellished all that. Do you know what I mean? Like they did an amazing job. Like so Adam Phillips is like one of the best guitarists in the country, like amazing guitarist. Derek Johnson was like signed to Factory Records, like he's from Manchester, and we had Tony Thompson on the drums as well, who was amazing. So they were all amazing musicians and definitely made that record. And Jay Reynolds produced it and mixed it, and everyone, like it was definitely not like a one-man job at all. Do you know what I mean? Like they massively made that record.
But what a whirlwind!
Yeah, it was an amazing thing. Like I think when we'd like made it and we were listening to it, we were like. Yeah.
I think we've got something here. Thank you.
But also that had like a rap section as well. So that the album version, like it slows down. Like we did this like slow down. I can't remember how we did it. It took a long time in the studio. And then there's like a rap bit in it because I didn't want it to be like a straight up sort of indie dance kind of like pop record. Yeah. I wanted to have this like weird section that would throw everyone, and they'd be like, "What the fuck is this?" Yeah. But then when it went to radio, they were like, "This song's too long, so you've got to do an edit." So I literally just dropped it into like Logic or Pro Tools. And I was like, well, I've got to take it from like 4 minutes to like 3 minutes. Which bit can I get rid of? And I was like snipping it and changing it, and then eventually I was like, oh, fuck it. Took the whole of the rap section out, moved it on, and suddenly it was like this perfect like 3 minute like pop song. So it was weird how that like happened as well, because it wasn't like a radio hit in its original format. The minute I took the rap section out of it, it just changed to this like kind of perfect pop record. I don't know, that was just like by accident almost. You know what I mean? So
when that dropped, I'm for a couple of names out there: The Streets, Ting Tings. Libertines. I mean, this was like the perfect hybrid of Jamie T was flying around. Of course, you had your UK hip hop and then your grime and all that stuff. But it was almost like there were few songs that really defined these kind of crossroads of genres and things that kind of met the same era of, I don't know, MySpace, for instance.
Well, it was a very MySpace era song. Like I was thinking about this as well. Yeah. I spent a lot of time on the bus thinking this morning. Yeah. I was thinking about MySpace, the fact that it was like free. It was free streaming, and I think that song got like 2 million plays on. Because I was thinking about the whole like streaming thing, because obviously people are always talking about it, and like how much people should get paid off streaming. And then I was thinking about MySpace. MySpace was essentially like a free streaming thing. You weren't looking to get paid. No. You were looking for people to hear your music. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And it worked in that instance. So anyway, it had like 2 million plays on which was like mad thinking about it, like on MySpace. But
that didn't deter it neither, because it just went stratospheric.
Yeah, it did. I mean, I think one of the biggest things with that record is that it went on the A list at Radio 1 8 weeks in advance. Now I was told at the time that the only other people who were getting put on 8 weeks in advance were like Coldplay and things like that. So when it went on, obviously everyone at the record label was high-fiving. Yeah, 8 weeks in advance. So I think that was obviously partly what made it a big. Wow. It was on the radio so much. Do you know what I mean?
So sick.
But to be honest, at the time, I honestly didn't think that much of the whole situation. Like I don't know. I was never like one to be sitting around thinking, like patting myself on the back particularly, or thinking, wow, this is amazing or anything. I was just kind of like going like, yeah, this record's like...
26?
This record's...
26,
I was 20... I was 30, 31 or something. I suppose that's probably why.
Yeah.
If I'd been 18, I'd have literally been just like...
Yeah,
in the pub like 24/7. I think I was just like sort of taking it all in like slowly. And I remember when I got called, when it went to like number 2, I got called by Radio 1, and I was like in a shop in like a changing room or something. And I was like, "Who's this?"
Oh yeah.
And just not really. I wasn't really like switched on. Like people used to say to me like, "When's your single coming out on the radio?" And I'd be like, "I don't know," like stuff like that. I just wasn't.
That is so artistry.
I wasn't really. I wasn't really kind of like, I wasn't buying into it that much at all. Like I was just sort of like riding it, but not really, I don't know, maybe not enjoying it as much as some people would. I'm not sure. Like I never expected it to be like that. Do you know what I mean? I never expected to be doing like T4 on the beach and like, we're going back a long way here. Do you know what I mean? I never expected to be in that pop world. And I didn't feel. Yeah, I met the dude from Skins at T4 on the beach.
Yeah.
But I never thought I would be in that pop world, and I was very uncomfortable in it for quite a long time. Yeah. Like I was very uncomfortable doing like TV shows and like interviews and all that stuff. It wasn't, because as we've said, like I came from a sort of world where like from like scenes and sort of genres that were underground, and that's what I respected. Do you know what I mean? And it did feel kind of strange to be like I never wanted
blow up that much.
I remember there was even a time when some people thought I was like manufactured. I think because I literally went from like no one knew who I was to having like really shiny, probably from like videos and stuff. We had some really amazing, like really shiny looking, fucking really good level videos. Yeah. Suddenly it's in the charts. And people just thought I'd just come out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? So I think some people just thought it was this kind of like slightly kind of like manufactured kind of thing, which again, like I don't think I was even aware of it at the time. I didn't really give a shit. But I wasn't comfortable. Like I'm not knocking it in terms of like I wasn't ungrateful or anything like that, but I wasn't particularly comfortable in that world.
Sure.
But it's nice to have a big record.
Yeah. In hindsight,
it's very nice to have a big record.
Yeah, I bet.
That people would kind of respect like for its subject matter and it still is relevant like lyrically.
100%.
It's not a what's the word? It's not a novelty record.
No, far from it.
So for that, I'm really, really, really grateful.
If anything, it leans even more to. I mean, I guess it's all some of the parts as well, because you mentioned Clash and Adam and Ants and stuff. It's quintessentially a British tune, and I think that leans for its time. People like Arctic Monkeys and Lily Allen and all these other people that were orbiting around MySpace and trying to get signed and seen. You're definitely heralded within that region, and in many respects, it's probably better that way than your kind of like hardcore hip hop things. I mean, hip hop connection ain't around anymore, man.
I suppose not. I mean, I think in retrospect, when you look back, I think I'm happy with how it was, and I think it's funnily enough that you mentioned like Arctic Monkeys and Lily Allen. At the time, like the press and stuff definitely didn't like put me in that. I wasn't getting like amazing reviews and shit like that particularly. It wasn't. I never felt like I definitely wasn't as hyped as much as a lot of those people were, and I definitely wasn't respected as much, I don't think, in like press and stuff like that. But people loved the music, and that's what I care about. It's like just normal people love the music. It's like it moves people.
It makes a difference.
People constantly get in touch with me and send me messages saying how different songs like define certain holidays or certain road trips that they took, or certain really sad things that happened to them, or do you know what I mean? And or people that have like named their child after like a name of a song, or like people with tattoos, all that kind of stuff. So I think at the time there might have been a small part of me that was like, I wish that I was a bit more sort of kind of a bit more in that club of getting like getting all the kind of accolades and like, do you know what I mean, all that stuff. But now I feel like there's like a, I don't know, I'm good with it. I'm good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because age and wisdom.
It's people, isn't it? Like it's just people who like people who love music, and
Yeah.
and that's really what matters.
Yeah.
I mean, like, good reviews, like it's like you can't, it's I like a friend of mine was like friends with Roots Maneuver with Rodney, and he once said to him, "You can't eat good reviews," which I think is like an incredible like quote. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, and that did make me kind of stop and kind of go, oh, actually, you know what I mean? Like these people in these like in these offices don't love me, but I don't really give a shit.
Well, they ain't got the same agendas. Well, they got
Yeah,
their own
and
agendas.
the record was like it was a success.
Yeah.
Like, and so that was something.
Possibly go wrong. And you got the Waves tune, you got the new tune that came out in May as well.
Yeah,
I mean that again is an extension to your vocabulary within the music.
Yeah,
Which is
Watching
fucking
Waves.
great.
Yeah, I love that tune actually.
Yeah, it's fucking great.
And I've got another one called Golden Teacher. That's my like disco ode to magic mushrooms. That's coming out. Should be coming out in July.
Wicked.
Golden Teacher is like a proper like disco kind of banger. It's a really nice tune. I think people are gonna like this one. It's very different from Watching Waves. It's like super mellow, but this one's like quite up.
I think what I like, your more recent album clearly has got some moments of disco. It goes into different genres. What I've always really loved about your work is that somehow you retain your rap voice within your singing voice, and I still can't quite figure that out. How can this sound so folky and right, but then it can suddenly sound very rap? I just don't know how you do it. That's props, by the way.
Because that's like a sort of flow thing, isn't it? Like I think like that's like a being interested in like flows, or like being like informed by rap flows, but singing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and also
cool.
singing in like a UK accent. Like I can't really
But
sing.
not a forced one. That's the thing.
Yeah, but that's because
respect to Jamie T and all the other contemporaries, but in a lot of cases, it can often sound regionalised when yours doesn't sound regionalised.
Well, I guess I grew up in like North London, and I was from like a middle class. Like my parents were like like my dad's an architect, my mum was like a fashion designer, and they both taught in university, so it's definitely like a sort of middle class thing. But I went to like Haverstock School in Camden, which was like quite a rough school, and a lot my friends were like Londoners. Do you know what I mean? So it was like it was just like a. It was like a natural thing. So I didn't have to. I wasn't like, definitely not trying to like
over accentuate.
No, because like I didn't need. To, I didn't. I don't know. It's just I think like Mike Skinner or someone like that. He's like his voice is like pretty much exactly as what comes out of his mouth.
Very Birmingham.
So like when someone's talking, if they you want to like sound this like for me, what I always liked was when someone started singing, and it was essentially this is exactly what you're talking about. When someone starts singing and it's exactly their voice.
I fucking love that.
But they're singing it, and it's like So if you listen to like certain people, when they open their mouth, some people when they open their mouth and they start singing, it is nothing like their speaking voice, and that's fine. Like people have their like affectations, or they have their just ways of singing. But for me, I like it when someone opens their mouth and it's kind of the same. It's the same voice.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Do you know what I mean? Like
I think Youngblood does that. I've got to give it to him.
I think there's probably quite a few people.
Quite a few people do that.
And like definitely like a lot of like US artists like pretty much sound exactly when they talk and they open their mouth and it sounds like as smooth and beautiful as their talking voice. Do you know what I mean? I think it's like
unless you like Axl Rose or something like that.
But I think everyone, I'm not saying like that it has to be like that for it to be authentic. But I think to answer your question, I think I just opened my mouth and started singing, and I think because I started singing so tentatively, I wasn't listening to big singers and going, I want to sound like that. I was just going, I'm sort of rapping a bit, and now I'm sort of singing a bit, and so it just sort of came out of that. And I think it's only actually as I've become older that I've become like a way better singer than I ever was in like 2007, 2009. So I couldn't sing. Listening to like recordings of live shows then, I wasn't singing very well at all, I'll be honest with you. And that was what was also funny. Like people were like, how have you managed to do this? Like you can hardly even sing. And I was just like...
No, the gods are watching over me.
I was just like... You know,
the 8 weeks in advance radio play gods.
Trying hard to make all the rest of it good. So
But
that,
you-
so that
but
the
you have
singing
to-
like... But
you
I
learn,
think I
don't
feel
you?
like now I'm actually like a pretty good singer now. Like I feel like I can actually sing like quite well now, which is nice.
Fucking right you can.
And that's partly from like confidence and stuff like that. I think like I wasn't confident then at all. Like I had this. It wasn't even imposter syndrome. I felt like I should have been there, but I didn't feel like I was amazing at what I was doing. And I looked around me and I thought there were some people who were like incredible at what they were doing, and I
And
just
then
felt
you
like
overlooked
I was working hard at like lyrics and like production and stuff like that to kind of maybe compensate for the fact that I didn't feel like I was like a singer. Do you know what I mean? So,
But as you get older as well, your timbre, your voice, your range, everything kind of develops.
Yeah, I think it's in confidence and stuff like that. And I think like I did a few vocals on like house tracks for like a friend of mine a while back. One of which became like quite a big like underground thing like in 2012.
Nice.
And because I was singing on like other people's tracks, and he actually really liked my voice and kind of told me he did quite often. I sort of came out of myself a little bit, and I think maybe slightly singing as a kind of bit of a character as well. I had this like other thing, this other sort of like alias. That I was kind of singing under.
Your Sasha Fierce kind of thing, is that what you mean?
Well, it was like it was actually quite sort of dark, a bit darker and a bit more sort of moody. I mean, there was like a moment in like British like house music in like 2012, just like big rubbery kind of bass lines. It's like a lovely time.
Swedish
like,
house mafia kind
no,
of.
No, not at all. It was more like, I mean, I was working with a guy called Maxi Sound System who was it was in Bristol.
Yeah.
And so it was like him and like lots of like Bristolian guys and like my brain's kind of like.
Oh, you're
blanking
talking
out
more
a
like
bit
hype
now.
beast kind of big,
Well,
big
like
basses.
MK had big records
Yeah,
at
they
the
got-
time
yeah.
as well. Like
Yeah.
it was like there was like a 2012 sort of like movement.
Jack beats, things like that.
Yeah, but it wasn't so. It was like more of like a kind of like wonky, like sort of smoother version of that. It was like it was like an amazing time. So anyway, from singing on those records as a sort of more moody, kind of like trippy kind of character, I think my voice sort of came out a bit from that. And then when I went back to my own music, I was like, oh, actually, I think I can. I feel more confident.
Yeah, that's cool as fuck. Yeah, and it takes a life of music to be getting to those places in time where, oh God, it's such a blind kind of lonely self-gratitude, but still thankless in like, you get somewhere and you're just like, wow, what did I even do that for? How did I get to this point? Well, it sounds good. I'm gonna. Do you know what I mean? It's the artist journey is such a crazy one, isn't it?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of like uncertainty.
Yeah.
For myself, I feel like some people don't really have that. Like I think I was talking to someone about this the other day. I think that like it must be amazing to be like really certain of what you're doing. Like if you're good and you're really certain, then you can make some amazing music, right? I always felt like I was like okay, trying really hard, but quite second guessing myself quite a lot, but still pushing through it. Basically, just I feel like my process of making music, I have to push through constantly. I don't find it like the initial idea can be quite easy and feel quite natural, but beyond that, it's just pushing hard to try and get to somewhere. You know.
Yeah.
It's which is not the same for everyone.
No, I think it's all different, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's also for courses. But I always still think the best music is the one that you really scrutinise on. There's some amazing moments.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think about this quite a lot, and I feel like people love the story of songs that happen really quickly.
Yeah.
Because then it almost
20 minutes in and out.
Because it almost says that like anyone can do it.
Yeah.
And people love that story. Let's face
Yeah.
it, and that's fair enough. Like but it's not true.
But also, it's this whole idea of
it's
like,
like-
I'm the spiritually lucky one that got gifted with this ability to do 20 minute.
Yeah. So people
recordings.
love that. So people love the quick. People love the half an hour, or I dreamt it, or like people love
The
that
golden
story.
child, yeah.
But in actual fact, like to make a lot of like really good records take a long time, and they go through lots of different iterations and processes. And I listen to like a podcast called Tape Notes quite a lot, which is like people talking about their like how they made albums and stuff like that. And quite a lot of them, you know, they go around like they go through so many different things. I always remember Mark Ronson talking about doing the Uptown Funk.
Yeah.
And he said it like literally nearly made him like go mad. Like I think he was like working on that song for like a year to get every single little tiny bit of it to be exactly sort of like perfect. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not a massive fan of that record, I'll be honest, but it was just like as a pop record, it was like perfect, right? It was so huge, and it was so kind of like, you know, and so I think a lot of things go through different iterations and different BPMs. They get sped up and slowed down, and the key gets changed, and like the arrangements gets changed, and you chip away at it until it becomes something that really like feels like the image you had in your head, or just feels so right, you know. But like you say, some people just like stumble on something, and by lunchtime it's finished. So. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean
it's just different.
But like, you know, going back to Stars in Your Eyes, you know, that to the untrained, or you know, the fans, they probably thought the same thing of its time and how it, you know, naturally and progressively blew, you know. But it doesn't work like that. I don't know many songs that do work like that, because even while someone says, "Oh, it took me 20 minutes," and you know the stars and the moon aligned with my, you know, with my pad and pen, it's like, nah, the truth is that there's about another 30 people behind you trying to make this thing pop off.
I think it's hard to have accidental hits.
Yeah.
In fact, you know what? I was just thinking about this. I think the most sort of accidental hits that happen these days is often just like kind of like pop house records. So like producers just like make like a beat with like a particularly little catchy little bass line and like something that happens, and then they maybe get a singer on it or whatever, or just there's like a little repeated line. I think those records still can become, which I still enjoy seeing sometimes, like something that's like that's so simple and like almost like anyone could have thought of it, but it just becomes like a huge thing. But I feel like in like it's I think it's hard to have in like you know traditional songs, like traditional pop songs. I think it's harder to have like an accidental hit these days than, you know, so that was genuinely like Stars in Their Eyes was an accidental hit, that we had no sort of like, apart from the fact that Jay, who mixed it, did love like a radio record. So like he was definitely sort of like trying to get like a radio record. So maybe that sort of did feed into it a little bit. But I feel like in terms of the sort of the intention making it, it was definitely not to like make like a big, a massive hit. Do you know what I mean? It just wasn't at all. So it's just accidental, and it's harder these days. Like you say, there's now like 10 writers on a song, 15 writers on a song. I think people fall over themselves when they look at the credits and it's like one person, like one guy's written a hit on his own. Do you know what I mean? I feel like that's a rarity. It is a rarity.
Yeah, it is a rarity.
And obviously record labels like love that shit.
Yeah.
The publishing companies.
And if only a handful can do it.
It feels like these days, you know, it feels like you utilize like lots of people's skills to make like a big record these days, which kind of makes sense in a way as well. It's like building a house.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
You don't like get a plumber to lay the floor. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a bit of a lame sort of like.
Big up all you female multitaskers out there.
That is kind of a lame like metaphor, but I feel like these days it feels like they have like a guy for each different thing. Like I think like in some like records in America you have like the 808s guy who just does the 808 kicks or whatever. Does that bit of it. Someone who does like, you know, just does like the key things, and someone who just does, you know, like the drum programming, and someone who just does like vocal production, and like you know, or they need like a little middle eight, and so they send it to someone in like Sweden who then writes that bit. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. And there might even be a sample in there, so then you get a whole nother like raft of writers added to it as well. So it's like
crazy, isn't it? Well, it is, and if you're a multi-selling artist such as Just Jack, and I'll be honest with you, bruv, like, you know, the fact that we can still talk about not just that song, but the legacy and what you created and built and forged over, you know, decades is fucking fantastic, and more power to you, my brother.
Nice one, man. I appreciate it.
Just Jack in the building.
Nice one.
You know, and the Future's Bright new single out in July.
It'll be out July. I've got to finish it. I'm so it's getting mixed. The second, I'm going to mix it tomorrow. Is it Wednesday tomorrow?
Yeah,
it's getting finished tomorrow.
It's fucking square.
So it's called Golden Teacher, and it's a banger.
How exciting!
It'll be out in July.
Back to Brighton. Brighton.
Yeah.
Brighton crew.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, that concludes this podcast, but also concludes the last podcast, Sydney Arts Arcade. I think I metaphorically explained it to Jack. You know, it's the Millennium Falcon exiting the Death Star before it explodes, but nonetheless, like that. And look, honestly, from my heart, it's been wicked doing stuff here. All the events and major activities from 10 Foot to UK hip hop based stuff, Nathan Bound, I mean, you name it, we've done a lot of stuff here. So yeah, big shout out to everybody for following and getting involved. We've got the new location ready to pop off. And yeah, Just Jack in the building. Lots of love on that.
Thank you for having me. Cheers, mate.
Alain was out of fashion, right? Remember, crime don't pay, but neither do they. Don't talk to an I wouldn't. Stay lucky. Peace.
I like your ID, your sign-ups.